Good evening and welcome to the Templar Report, COVID Emergency Special Edition, and I'm your guest presenter for tonight, Nick Griffin, which obviously raises the question, where is Brother Jim? Well, Brother Jim did the Sunday service, as you know, yesterday, and he'd been told he shouldn't be. He should actually have gone to hospital because his eye really is playing up very badly. So Brother Jim is now in hospital having his eye looked at. I'm told he's been shunted from one place to another because of the COVID chaos. So he's not the happiest man I've ever spoken to, but he's all right. And Jim's tough. He will be fine. We hope very much, certainly I hope very much, that he's back tomorrow, and I'm sure that you will as well. So fingers crossed on that one. Now, what are we going to do about Brother Jim? Well, he does worry about things. He worries about the Templars. He worries about, I'll be very blunt, whether there'll be enough money coming in to do what we need to do. Now, the regular viewers, you'll have been aware that we've been pushing very hard the volunteer aid packs over the last couple of weeks, and Jim specifically asked me to plug that yet again. So if you're not already doing it, you haven't already sent for one of these packs, and you're in a position to, wherever you are in the world, obviously if you're in Southern Ireland, in the Republic of Ireland, please get in touch with Sean Aaron and Niall McConnell and do the food aid with them. But anywhere else, Northern Ireland, Britain, USA, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, wherever you are, please get in touch. You've seen the link there, and get involved and help. And if you can't help for some reason or other, perhaps you're sheltering with someone who genuinely needs to be protected from a nasty flu bug, in that case, please send some cash. It's as simple as that. We do things because people like you give money. If people don't give money, there's so much less we can do. So it's very un-English, very vulgar to ask for money, but I'm asking on Jim's behalf, on behalf of the Templars, on behalf of the people that we need to help and our volunteers need to help. If you can't get involved yourself, please stump up the dollars or the pounds or the whatever they are right now. Please do it. Mind you, right now, don't forget, like, share, hit the bell, subscribe, and comment below. Now, I'll start serious business, as Jim always does, with a little bit of scripture. Very short. Genesis 1:28. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth and subdue it. And then, as if that wasn't enough, in Genesis 9, verse 7, we get the same message, slightly different angle. And you, be ye fruitful and multiply, bring forth abundantly in the earth, and multiply therein. As a general rule, when God tells you something twice, you've got to understand he's actually pretty serious about it. So, as human beings, the very first commandment, actually, right there in the very start of Genesis, is to be fruitful and multiply. And how are we doing with this? Well, think about that a moment, because if you think about the population replacement levels of the entire, not just the Western world, but the whole of Europe, the whole of Christendom, the whole of our world, you will, I'm sure, know that it's catastrophically low. And we're going to talk about that this evening. Just before we do, let me go for a minute, see who's in here. Greetings too. And I know there's many more people here whose names I can't see in front of me now, but let's call out a few. Donald Pollock, James Reff, Lady Rother from the Isle of Man, Dan Gera or Gera, Frank Bukovitz. Hi, Frank, with the alcohol. Roger Madison, John Van Arken, Neville Walker from just up the road. Neville, nice to see you again. Clinton Dixon, Jonathan Bowden, Stephanie, Ash, Scott Rush, Timothy, Donald Pollock, I mentioned you already, don't be greedy. Spider Rogers, Jim Young, and I'm sure others there as well. Bert Myers, good day to you indeed. So thank you all for joining me. And please, as Jim said in the past, when you finished here, if you've enjoyed this, if you're hoping Jim's going to come back tomorrow, then give him a present by getting on the one or two mates tonight and making sure that they're on here tomorrow. Let's build this thing. Because I watch some of the other messages that go out from other people on YouTube, and some of them, they've got enormous numbers of people watching, but they are talking squiffle. really does sometimes make me despair. And I know that certainly when Jim is speaking, he's talking really serious, sensible stuff. He delivers it with much more sort of panache and charm, I'm afraid, than I do. But I've got some things to talk about today. So let's come back to this question of being fruitful and multiplying. Now, the average in the European Union, which is pretty much the old Christendom, the average number of children per woman of childbearing age is 1.58. The replacement level is 2.1. If you fall below 2.1, your population is going to drop. If you fall a long way below it, it's going to crash. Doesn't happen immediately because it takes a long time for a generation to die and so on. But once a generation is past the age of, roughly speaking, 40, doesn't matter how long they live, they aren't going to affect the population in the next generation, the generation after that. It's already all over for people my age, Jim's age, all over by the dying. Although we have, I hope, got some things worth doing in the meantime, till we get to that stage, God willing. But the United States of America, I didn't have time before this to look up what your figure is there, but I know that if you speak about the people who built America, the people of British stock, English, Irish, Scots, Welsh, Scots, Irish, the French, the Italians, the Germans, the Poles, all these people from all over the old world, if you look at their average and you strip out the various newcomers and the fast breeders, you'll end up with a lot lower than the European average of 1.58. And when you strip out the recent incomers, the colonists, the newcomers, the third worlders from our figures, I'm told here it's 1.7 in the USA. So that's quite high. But you take out those Mexicans, you take out the Muslims, you take out these different groups who are not the people who built the USA, and the European population of the USA, the average will be not that different to the real average in the West, which when you strip out all those others, if we're on one, we're quite lucky. The real, true average fertility rate of indigenous European women is probably 0.8. That's the Italian figure going back now quite some years. It's catastrophic. If you get 1.3, people don't really seem to realize, well, does it matter that much? Yeah, if you have a birth rate of 1.3 and you keep that up over one generation, that's all, because then it's too late to change it effectively. But certainly if you keep it up for more than that, 1.3 means that by 2060, which is in the lifetime of many of you watching this right now, and certainly in the lifetime of really all your children, all your grandchildren, 1.3 means a 40% drop in the total population by 2060. And thereafter, at that stage, it really is too late to turn things around, because by then, the number of women of childbearing age or below is so small, and the number of old people that the system has to look after, the people have to look after, is now so big that the pressure of taxes, the pressure of having to work to keep it all going, is going to crush the youngsters who should be having kids, so they can't even afford probably to have any. That's how bad it is. That's why basically European civilization, the whole of it, whatever's done, is in really serious trouble. I go further than that. The civilization that we've known, what we've taken for granted as normal, it's finished. And nothing is going to change that. Now, one of our Irish comrades from the north of Ireland, whose name on here I will not pronounce, says, I have 15 kids. I'm doing my bit. Indeed you are, sir. I do salute you. Fantastic. Tremendous. I've got 4. Jim's got 4. Jim's outstripping me on the grandchildren by 1 at present, but that's being worked on. So it's a serious problem. It really is. So I want to look at one place where a lot of nationalists especially say, don't worry, just look at what they're doing in Hungary. It can all be turned around. Paul Telford, 6 kids and 20 grandchildren. Wow. That's my very good friend who saved me from all sorts of trouble over many years, along with other comrades from the old security team, Paul Telford. Thank you. And I know you're too old to carry on breeding, Paul, but tell those grandchildren of yours you want some great grandkids before you're much older. But so, yeah, Hungary. Nationalists will tell you it's not so bad. Look how they're turning it around in Hungary. Orban's got the measure of this. He's understood it and he's putting things right. Everything's going to be great. I wish that was true, but it isn't. Yes, Viktor Orban has seen more than almost any other leader in the world that this is a serious problem and something needs to be done. It's not just Orban, actually. The Poles are working on it. Vladimir Putin is in Russia. Russia's demographic was absolutely terrible. They've now just about got it up to 2 children per woman of childbearing age, although that does include a large number of recent immigrants. But they understand and they're working on it too. So, Viktor Orban. About 10 years now, Orban's been working on this, and as the years have gone on, he's got more and more focused and intense on the idea, he said, in Western Europe and in the USA for that matter, their idea of making up for the population crash is to bring in immigrants. And Orban said, we don't want immigrants, we want Hungarian children, and we're going to throw a lot of money at making it happen. And there's been successive measures, starting off with a bit of tax relief, and then in more recent years, moving on a €30,000, €30,000. It's about what, $27,000 loan to any young family who just agree they're going to have 3 kids or more. And the minute they've had 3, it's not a loan, it becomes a gift. There's special loans that families can get to buy a 7-seater car, because certainly I know that from when my wife and I were young and we had 4 kids, we weren't worried at all about being skint and not having enough money. But the problem of being able to get around, having a car large enough, that was a serious problem. So yeah, Viktor Orban and the Hungarian government, they've understood that's a problem. So give some money to help a big family have a car large enough. Fair enough. They've said that any woman who has more than 4 children never has to pay income tax for the rest of her life. So they're trying. And it has had an effect. The Hungarian birth rate 10 years ago was 1.28 children per woman of childbearing age. So that's even worse than the point at which 2060, 40% of Hungarians currently now living will be gone. The country's 10 million population would be 6 million and on a rapid decline from there on. And through these measures, the Hungarian government, 2019, had managed to boost their birth rate to 1.5. Still below the European average. And they've worked really hard to do that. And in fact, last year it slipped to 1.48. So they've been throwing really serious amounts of GDP, really serious amounts of money and effort at turning this thing around. And they failed to do so. So fair play for trying, but it hasn't worked. Why it hasn't worked, we'll come on to in a little while. But it hasn't. So the really extreme political types will say, oh, Hungarian Orban, well, he's a bit soft and liberal and so on. Interesting relationships with Israel. Not really interested. Look at good old Adolf, they say. Not me saying that, please. Them saying that. Nazi Germany, they turned it round with their mother's crosses and women being encouraged to have 5 kids for a mother's cross, 2nd class and 1st class for 10 kids, and lots of money and effort and state indoctrination thrown at it. And that's actually true. The state indoctrination system of Nazi Germany has not been surpassed until recent years in the West. And I don't believe, as I said before, and I was at Guest Jim's the other day, I don't believe that Goebbels would have ever dared to come up with anything as audacious, as vulgar, and as brilliant, as effective as the 2-minute clap that we have to have as part of our health service worshipping COVID-19, 1984 farce. But for all that, in those days, the Nazis had a pretty good propaganda machine. And for 10 years, they threw it at the German people to have larger numbers of children. Now, in the 19th century, Germany's birth rate through the whole 19th century went up and down a bit with depressions and problems, but the average through the 100 years was 5 children per woman of childbearing age. Explosion of population. And then in 1900, as birth control of the middle class started to kick in, and to a degree poverty for the working class, it crashed. And it was crashing through the Depression, through the Weimar Republic years, and it reached its lowest actually 2 years after Hitler had come to power. In 1935, it was standing at 1.77 children per woman of childbearing age. Higher than the average now, but that's where it was. And everything that the Nazi regime, a totalitarian state of extraordinary ruthlessness and efficiency, everything they threw at that, by 1940, which is the highest point, They've got the birth rate up to 2.24 children. Basically, a little bit over replacement level, but nothing more than that. So throwing money at the problem doesn't seem to make much difference. And even throwing all that state propaganda doesn't really seem to make that much difference. So what does? Well, to answer that question, we need to look at the modern world again, come right up to date. Who does breed? Who does have children? Well, there's the Africans, but they're living in Africa in poverty and so on, and actually very old-fashioned society. So let's put them to one side for a minute. Who has children in the industrial world? Well, not us, not East Asians, really nobody in the industrial world, except Mr. Technical Man. In a moment, we'll have picture number one. Here's one group that does have children. Muslims. Now, not all Muslims. The birth rate of the Middle Eastern region, the North African belt, is actually now declining very, very rapidly, as everywhere from Egypt right the way across Tunisia, Morocco and so on, as they get a bit more middle class or aspirational, their birth rate right now is crashing through the floor. Still higher than ours, but it's crashing through the floor. For this family, the clue is in the man's beard and in the wife's headdress. You see, these are traditional Muslims. These are really religious Muslims, and they've got a healthy, normal-sized family, and from their age and the age of the kids, before they finish, they'll have several more. I'm not saying that to knock Muslims. I admire that, because at this rate, that family and their descendants will outbreed the others, and they and theirs will take over the empty lands that we are leaving. Jim Mould, I'd love to have 4 more, but I don't think my wife would appreciate that thought. And I'm not sure I've got the energy at my age to have a brood full of a second nest full. So no, I'll leave that be. Thank you very much. But how old are you? Let's see. So who else? Mr. Techie Man. In a moment, bring up number 2. Here's another people who have lots of children, Orthodox Jews. Now, I remember being active in nationalist politics in London. I lived in London for some time in the very early 1980s. And there was one small area of North London where you saw people like this. And I know that Americans, especially from New York and so on, if you're of a certain age, me or a little bit older, think back to where you would have found people like this 30 years ago. And I guarantee that now it's expanded greatly. In fact, I know that there's huge trouble. Certainly before the COVID thing burst on the scene, there was enormous trouble brewing in New York as Orthodox Jews, using various tricks of estate agency, real estate behavior and so on, and just the sheer number of them, were moving into the old black ghettos and gradually taking over and then forcing them out. So generally, when a black ghetto starts to be established, people like us move out, white flight. But where the Orthodox Jews go in, it's the blacks that move out. It's black flight. And that's not about Jewish money, about Jewish power, about the wickedness of Jewish estate agents, as the blacks would see it. It's just the fact that their birth rate is far, far higher, and the birth rate of the black population of urban America is basically crashed because of enormous abortion rates, lots of suicide, loads and loads of young men in prison, absentee dads, single mums on the welfare and so on. So they're simply being outbred by the Orthodox Jews, and therefore they're expanding. So if you were to take that at face value, or just as a matter of fact, if you come back to New York, if nothing else has changed in 60 years' time, it'll basically be an Orthodox Jewish city, because they're the ones having kids and other people aren't. Except Mr. Technical Man, number 3, because this isn't about other people's religion. This is the Amish. Now, the Amish in the 17th century were a rather heretical German sect who got ideas above their station, and they and their religious ideology have been heavily involved in all sorts of crazed peasant rebellions and so on, and problems during just before even the wars of religion. And they fled to America in tiny numbers, and they gave up the idea of conquering things, just withdrew from society. And I think the figure for Amish now in America is 10 million. And of course, because they are Europeans, because they are genuine Christians, they and the rednecks are the people most demonized by Hollywood, most appallingly traduced as idiots and inbreds and all the rest. Well, I'm sure those Americans who live close enough to the Amish to know them, to see them, know that simply isn't true. That their farming methods are traditional but highly productive, and that the society is a really fine and stable society. Now, the Liberals have got a myth that they force down our throats, that if you try and bring your children up like you, they rebel against it. That's what they say. If the Liberals really believed that, they wouldn't insist on having wall-to-wall, 100%, 24-hour-7 indoctrination in liberal values and multiculturalism and multiracialism and LGBTQ+. They wouldn't be forcing it down our throats or the throats of our children and grandchildren. Of course they do, because they don't believe that. They know that if you rear children in a certain way, while a few rebel, most of them stay true. And certainly that's true with the Amish. And they allow the youngsters, especially the young men, when they hit 18, they say, go off to the big city. Go off, enjoy yourself, sow your wild oats. And the vast majority of them come back. Because once they see the reality of the big city, they are so horrified, they come back to their decent, tight-knit community, and they settle down and they have kids. Just one more group that in recent years is starting, group of Europeans in recent years has started having large numbers of children. And this is in Russia, where the Russians, through the communist abortion years, do you know the Russian state has murdered not more Russian children than the total number of Russians, 22 million, who died in the Second World War. 5 times the death toll. More than 100 million Russians are missing, and their children are missing, and even their grandchildren are missing because of decade after decade of mass abortions. But since Vladimir Putin has brought Russia back to Christianity, the number of abortions is falling through the floor, and the number of traditionalist Russian families, the next slide please, number 4, like this. Now this is actually a Russian Orthodox priest, and priests in Russia have to be married, in fact, and they make a point of having large families. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 children there, and again you look at their age and they're going to have some more as well. And the secular lay families follow their example. So although part of the demographic turnaround in Russia is to do with Muslim immigrants, it's also increasingly to do with Christian Russians. So, what's the common denominator among those people? It's that they're not relying on money to try to have kids. The common denominator is faith. Faith in God, that God will provide, and that God wants them to be fruitful and multiply, and that children are a blessing. There are other factors within it, of course. They do not have feminism. If you look at all those women, all in some way wearing something which indicates a relationship between them and the man of the house, and a relationship between them and God, which is very, very different indeed to the constant propaganda for women from Christendom, for our women, and for that matter, the women of the people of Southeast Asia, the Japanese, the Koreans, the middle-class Africans in Nairobi and so on, to all get on, have a career, get a job, you'll be fine. Having kids is, well, it's demeaning to you as a woman. Is it hell? It's the very purpose of being a man and a woman, is to have children. And it's those people who have this religion and a religious faith so strong that they're prepared to set themselves apart, and they wear dress, all of them, where not just the women, the men as well, the ones who are really going to make the difference in future generations, they actually wear a dress which in some way sets themselves aside from Sodom, which is what it is. And that is why they will inherit the earth. Now, come back here. Who's in still? Andy McCoy, Tom Kelly, Joseph Brooks, Timothy Koss, all the rest of you, Richard Shell, Ricardo Shell, sorry, and the others still watching. Thank you very much. I hope my rant, which as you know is very different to Jim's chit-chat sort of charm, is a little bit different, but I hope it's given you pause for thought. Yes, a little update, Spider, thank you for the question. A sneak peek on the Deus Vault book. Well, the reason that I've been talking about this in Hungary is that today I've been working on the very last chapter to come in, which is from our Grand Prior in Hungary, Imre Taglesi, who is a veteran leader of the pro-life movements in Hungary, where his nickname is the Rescuer, on account of the many thousands of Hungarian babies that one way or another he's saved from abortion and has ensured that there's at least their family line goes on in Hungary. And his essay for the book obviously is about the pro-life point and precisely this thing, that it's not just money. In fact, just look at one thing he says about Hungary, where the government is saying if a woman has 4 children, she doesn't have to pay income tax. The government is at every level accepting that it's good for a woman to be going to work and just about scraping to have 4 kids, instead of creating a completely different mindset whereby it's absolutely understood that the greatest thing that a woman can do, shouldn't be forced to do it, but the greatest thing a woman can do is to be a full-time mother. And being a full-time mother isn't some kind of cop-out. It's not some kind of failure. It's a far more rounded and worthwhile and skilled job, taking far more dedication and worthy of far more admiration from all the rest of society, us men in particular, than anything that any man or any woman can do in commercial life. Jada Franson, superb show tonight. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you very much, Jada. Jada, I'm going to say what so many men say to me, so I know you're tough-skinned enough to do it. It really would be great to see Jada with some kids. But, gentlemen who say that, Jada is really remarkable. She's a sort of Boudica figure. And perhaps she's not called to. Perhaps she's called to be a leader of men when so many men haven't got anything between their legs at all, it would seem. But we'll see. Enough on that one. We're getting near the end. It's 6:30 here. So we've had a look at who's in there. Graham 19, Tara Templeton from, is it Idaho, I think. Pleased to see you in as well. And all of you, please like, share, hit the bell, comment below. I've missed anything else? Sorry, you know the drill anyway. But come on, give us some likes. Give me some likes, please. Come along so I can say to Jim, look what I got more than you. If you've enjoyed the show tonight, please do that. But most of all, share it and encourage people to come on tomorrow and hopefully see Jim back again. So, nearing the end, Mr. Slideman, I want to, in a moment, get ready for pick number 5, because I'm going to be asking for money again. Whenever we do this, of course, all the silly kids out there on YouTube and so on say, they're asking for money. But can we have number 5? I want to remind you of this. This is what asking for money allows you to do. There's Jim in the blue jacket, there's me in the white shirt, and we're with a Bulgarian militia, and everything that's on the floor with them, that's tactical vests, it's, I think, 4, there's a drone there that's, in fact, she's a girl in a mask is holding up, there's comms equipment there in the middle, all that Jim and I took across, thousands of dollars worth. We took it to those volunteers who are on the border between Bulgaria and Turkey, facing not just migrants. And while we were on patrol with them, we found abandoned Islamist prayer beads. We found abandoned ID cards from basically every Muslim country from Turkey southeastwards. These people coming through the woods, and of course they're guided by people smugglers who are armed. So these lads and lasses, and some older men as well, and at least one Bulgarian Muslim who said, I am loyal to Bulgaria. This is my country. My family have lived here for generations, and I don't want these Islamist crazies coming in and splitting our society and wrecking things. So we were there with those people, and we were able to give them that aid, which, when you're up against people smugglers, armed people smugglers, having a bulletproof vest make going through the woods a little bit harder, but it's well worthwhile. We also took night vision equipment so that they're able literally to see in the dark to help secure their border I must add and remind people, at the request of and with the blessing of the Bulgarian government. So it's a private militia, but they're not violent. They're there law-abiding. When they're catching illegal immigrants, the first thing they do, one of the lads with them always has a pack full of water bottles and food, and if these people are in distress, they give them that straight away, and then they take them to the police and the army and hand them over to be processed and sent back across the border. They are on the front line of Christendom for all of us, and it's one example of what we're able to do because we dare to sometimes ask for money. As I'm doing now, can we also have Mr. Technical Man, the volunteer assistance slide back up as a reminder to you? There you go, very fine vest, the lanyard and name tag, the cards which you put out for people, and the official exemption notice to wave in front of the nose of any particularly snotty policeman who tries to tell you you shouldn't be doing these things. As the link there, get involved or chip in, because if you cannot do this for yourself, then for your neighbours, yourself, please chip in and give us some money right now, because it enables us to help out. We've got some volunteers who can't afford these things. And in any case, the office structure, all this costs money. Even if nothing's going on, even if nothing's coming in, we've got a machine, and the machines take oil, and donations are the oil and the fuel. Joseph Taylor's $40 a month doing its good. Absolutely so. Thank you, Joseph. Everybody, the regular donations are worth more than anything because they allow people. Jim's the budget man, not me. I'm not even allowed to hold the purse strings at home. I don't know what to do with money. I've got it. I just spend it. It's great. Jim's there, and the overall treasurer of the order, who's one of the council of 9, making sure that the money's well looked after. And those regular donations like Joseph Taylor's, they are more valuable than anything else. So, like, share, hit the bell button, whatever it is, comment below, and like again. There we go. Video, subscribe, get notified, share, hit the bell to get notified. That's it. Sure you got the message by now. Please join me, or I hope Jim, tomorrow night. Just one last thing. Can we go back, Mr. Technical Man, to the Bulgarian picture, please? Can we? Yes, we can. And you'll notice there that various people, myself, some of the volunteers, the ones who understood English, Jim and the leader of the militia sitting to Jim's right, are doing a salute. They come back to me, this 3-fingered salute. And this is in answer. This is the ultimate Christian salute. 3 fingers. You know the Islamist salute, 1 finger. Done not just by, it's not the American middle finger, that's a different thing altogether. This salute is the Islamist one, done not just by ISIS, but also by the Muslim Brotherhood, who dominate the Islamist communities of many countries, including the United States of America. This means one God. There's no God but Allah. And they hate this one. This means 3. Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. This is the sign of the Trinity. And this symbol, anywhere in the Orthodox world, in Russia, down to Serbia, through Bulgaria, that's the symbol they do to show their faith, to show their comradeship, which is why we do it over there, and certainly why I encourage people to use this. I regard this should be known by everyone as the Templar salute. There, one God there. To the heart here, one, the one God is 3. And on that, I will leave you tonight with that thought. I hope you'll be here with Jim tomorrow. If not, you'll have to put up with me once again. So, as Jim would say, stick close to God, and you won't go far wrong. Deus vult.
The threat is real, and we are on the front line. In a world of misinformation and attacks from the left and mainstream media, censorship, deplatforming, it is time to call out the fake news and bring you the truth. We are the Knights Templar. Visit our website and join today. We are the Resistance. Deus Vult.